A trip down memory lane, remembering late Mrs. Marina Sundaralatha Prasad, 87 years, of her life and witness. Birth. Mrs. Marina Sundaralatha Prasad was born in Ballari on 26 May 1936 to Mrs. Rajamma and Mr. Swamidas, who were dedicated people living and serving the missionaries of the London Missionary Society mission work. Her father worked as a driver for the missionaries of the LMS. When she was a year old, her mother became ill and she gave her to the care of Mrs. Prema, her relative, who was ministering as a Bible woman with the missionaries of the LMS. She passed away after that, and added to the loss, she lost her father at the age of 6. Early life. Marina spent a few years of her early childhood at Mission School Ballari. Then she was sent by the missionaries to the boarding home at Mitralaya Boarding Home for Girls in Bangalore. As a boarder and a student of Mitralaya Girls High School, she excelled in her studies. Her leadership in the boarding home as a caring and compassionate person was something that many of her fellow boarders witnessed over the years. Early career. After completing SSLC at Mitralaya, Bangalore, she returned to Ballari and finished teachers training course and started work as a teacher in London Mission School, Ballari. Church life. Her baptism and confirmation were at John Hand's Church, Ballari. After returning from Bangalore, she resumed her role in John Hand's Church, and later she was also part of All Saints Church in the English choir. The British missionaries were impressed by her singing the alto at All Saints Church, and they even recorded a few songs from her as an example of Indian Christians taking over the worship and ministry in Ballari. Marriage. Marina was a dedicated teacher, faithful chorister, and a beautiful young Christian woman in her early 20s. It was only fate that she met the love of her life, Mr. Paul Jaya Prasad, through her close friends Mrs. Mary and Mrs. Vimala, wife of late Reverend Benjamin Dorairaj. Mr. Paul is the cousin of Mrs. Vimala and Mrs. Mary, and their meeting was destined by fate, and they became acquainted to each other through the choir, as Mr. Paul was a good musician who would accompany the choir. When she was 25 years old, their pair as a singer and musician translated into their lifelong partnership. On 9th February 1961, as husband and wife, which lasted for 52 years. Their 50th year Golden Jubilee function was celebrated in the year 2011 with all the relatives and friends. Milestones in their married life. 1963, birth of her daughter Kalpana. 1965, birth of her son Samuel. 1971, birth of her son Kiran. Ballari to Chikbalapura. In the year 1972, Mr. Paul Jaya Prasad, who was working as instructor in the Government Polytechnic, was transferred to Chintamani, so they decided to relocate themselves to Chikbalapur. In Chikbalapur, they joined Christ Church. During this time, she completed her diploma in Ayurvedic medicine in order to help her sister-in-law, Dr. Gnana Bharana, who was fondly known as Papachi, in her clinic. She took care of her sister-in-law till she passed away in her old age. Chikbalapur to Tumkur. In the year 1979, they moved to Tumkur as Mr. Paul Jaya Prasad was transferred from Chintamani to Tumkur. They took up membership in Wesley Church, Tumkur. On 8 October 1981, marriage of her daughter Kalpana to Mr. Arun Prakash J. On 30th July 1982, birth of her first grandchild Nivedita daughter of Kalpana and Arun. On 11 December 1986, birth of her second grandchild, Supreet, son of Kalpana and Arun. Tumkur to Bangalore. In 1989, at the time of the retirement of Mr. Paul Jaya Prasad, they relocated to Bangalore and settled in Vidyaranyapura. There they took up membership at St. Stephen's Church. At St. Stephen's, she and her husband were fully involved in the ministry of the church. Mr. Paul Jaya Prasad was a PC member till a couple of years before his ill health and death, and she was a dedicated Sunday school teacher and superintendent for few years, and a very active member of the Women's Fellowship, and also a member of the pastorate committee. She would participate in the interchurch singing competition. In one instance, she along with late Mr. Sudhakar won the interchurch singing competition for hymns and lyrics. She was passionate to teach the Kannada lyrics and English hymns to others in the church. On 6th May 1996, her son Samuel got married to Sunita. On 20th January 1998, birth of Rohit, her third grandchild, son of Samuel and Sunita. On 12th June 2002, birth of Kanan, her fourth grandchild, son of Samuel and Sunita. On 17th October 2006, her son Kiran got married to Ratna. On 28th October 2007, birth of Jeffrey, her fifth grandchild, son of Kiran and Ratna. On 2nd October 2008, wedding of her first grandchild Nivedita to Reverend Naveen K. John. On 21st November 2011, birth of her sixth and last grandchild Cecilia, daughter of Kiran and Ratna. On 24th April 2012, birth of her first great grandson Nishchal, son of Nivedita and Reverend Naveen K. John. 11th March 2013, she lost her husband Mr. Paul Jaya Prasad, and she lost her son-in-law Mr. Arun on 25th May 2013. In the year April 2018, her second grandchild Supreet got married to Tara. On 29th July 2020, birth of her second great grandchild Sanmit, son of Supreet and Tara. Setback and recovery of health. During the year 2016-17, she suffered several health issues, but after that she recovered and became a testimony of God's healing till her death in 2022. Her recovery gave her a new lease of life. She had an amazing memory till her death. She remembered people, events, and places with all of its details. If we would mention a place or a person, she would recollect every aspect of their life. Such was her memory. Mrs. Marina was the cornerstone of the family. Even though she was weak towards the last few years of her life, she would actively involve and interact with all her relatives and friends. Among her very close family, Reverend Dr. Manohar Chandra Prasad, Mr. B. Prabhakaran, Mrs. Shashikala, Mrs. Nora, and few others were very close to her. She would constantly keep in touch with them and be concerned about them. In conclusion, Mrs. Marina Sundaralatha Prasad has lived a long, fulfilled life as a daughter, sister, wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, elder, friend, counselor, and above everything else, a witness for God's love, which she expressed in every aspect of her life. She was a very tolerant, patient, loving, caring, prudent, wise, kind, helping, hospitable, a good teacher, good cook, active and alert to the problems around her, bold in making the right decisions, a passionate singer, good guide, ardent listener of every sermon in the church, which she would always discuss in the family after the Sunday services. Dedicated member of the church in which she was a member from time to time. We thank God for such a wonderful life that we cherish, remember, and forever keep in our hearts. We miss you. And finally, we would like to play a song which was sung by Mrs. Marina just 3 months before her demise.